pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen. I'd like to take a moment of silence, first for the people of Texas and the difficult times that they've endured during the Hurricane Harvey, so we take a moment of silence for that. Thank you. And I'd also like to take a moment of silence for David Crook, who passed away on August 27th. He was an active member in the community. He served on the council. He served as president of the council. He was on the Lions, and he was very involved in the community. So I'd like to take a moment of silence in his memory. Thank you. On a happier note, I just want to congratulate the town solicitor, Patty O'Neill. He's done a great job here in Narragansett, and he is going to be leaving us. And I just want to congratulate him on his promotion, I guess it is. He's a magistrate judge in the district court, so congratulations to him, and we want to thank him for his work here, although short, great, and we wish him the very best. And we're in the process of reviewing some resumes and seeing how we're going to fill that position for him. So we'll keep you posted on that. Also, I want to report out from an executive session from the town of Narragansett. In the last executive session, we voted 5-0 to appeal the 4 unrelated. So I wanted to get that vote out there so that the community understood where we stand with that 4 unrelated, so we will be asking for an appeal. The next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes for August 7th, 2017.
A motion to approve with an amendment.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Just to amend, on page 502, there was a roll call vote at the end of the meeting regarding the executive session. Jill and I both voted nay, so it should reflect that.
Thank you, and can we agree with that amendment to support those minutes?
As long as I get a second.
Yeah. Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0, motion passes with the amendment. Next, we have open forum. Oh, I have some announcements. I apologize for that. I have a couple of important announcements. And first is we have a very exciting event coming up this weekend. It's the Calamari Fest, September 9th, and I'm going to ask that the chamber, Christine, come on up and you tell us about this wonderful event. It will take a few minutes. We're very excited about it.
Good evening. The 3rd annual Rhode Island Calamari Festival is Saturday, September 9th. It begins at 11 o'clock and goes till 6 p.m. The competition between 11 restaurants this year, it begins at 12 and goes from 12 to 4. We're really quite proud of this event. We've got live bands all day, a number of food trucks, and thank you for approving the peddler's licenses. Plenty of vendors, Sea Fresh, Town Dock, and Sea Freeze are providing the calamari, and it's just been, we'd like to thank you, the town council. We'd like to thank the town manager, Jim Manny, Steve Wright in his office, Chief Corrigan and Chief Partington, Mike DeChico in his office, and Ann Irons and her wonderful women that helped us out with the peddler's licenses and making sure that everything went smoothly. It's $10 per person for adults, 12 and under, free, and we think it's just going to be a wonderful event. We have a number of dignitaries coming from all across the state for the ribbon cutting, which will be promptly at noon, and we hope to see all the town council there.
Saturday at
11:45. Well,
correct?
11:45 we'll gather, and then promptly at noon we will cut the ribbon.
Thank
to kick
you.
off the competition.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
I just wanted to also mention, I hope somebody from the council is able to go to this September 11th. The Scarborough Wastewater Treatment Facility Flood Project is being recognized, and thank you, Jeff. And I know that the council was asked if anybody could be there. Unfortunately, I can't make it, but Matt, you'll be there too as well. So that's on September 11th at 10:30 a.m., and it's right down at the plant. Okay? Moving on to open forum. If you come up to the mic, 3 minutes, state your name and your address. Do you have anybody for open forum? I was almost going to have Fred, triathlon, come on up.
Hi, Fred Bartlett, 51 Fifth Avenue. The Furman Triathlon is this weekend, Sunday. It's been approved by the council, thank you for that, and it's our 22nd year. Part of the reason that I help out with the triathlon, I'm the volunteer coordinator, is that the race gives back half its net profits to the town. Or, for example, the YMCA race is in next week, the money will go to the YMCA for that race. I'm here tonight because I have 2 checks for $2,500 each to give to the Parks and Recreation Department, to Steve Wright, from last year's race. So this will total about $25,000 over the last 22 years that this race has given back money to the town. Now, we realize that puts some of the locals out of kind of a little bit of things going on here and there. We've really tightened it down. We have 4 little races. We have a swim only. We have an aqua bike, which is biking and swimming, and we have a sprint race as well. And with the work of all the departments, each year it's gotten a little smoother and a little better. And we're hoping for good weather this weekend. And I want to thank you all for allowing us to have this every year here. In fact, the council president is one of my water stops. She provides a hose and free water for one of our water stops on the run. And she's done that for 15, 20 years for this course. So I want to thank you all for that. And I want to give Steve $5,000.
Fred, I'm going to have Steve come up, and I'm going to take a picture. You're going to hand him off the check. That'd be great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fred. Keep up the good work. Anybody else for open forum? Jeff?
Jeff Dentler, Village of Point Judith. I was here in February and made a statement about some rental units that had not paid on time. I did happen to find, Jim, the note that you had given me in June, and I wanted to congratulate you, your department, for collecting roughly $25,000 in late fees out of the 2,770 units. 2,500 of them paid on time, which then equates to, out of the 25,000 that you've collected, there's an additional 37,000 that is still due in late fees for those that have not paid. I know also on the agenda later today or tonight is talking about taxes. I find it awfully intriguing that the residents of Cranston met with their state senator, Frank Lombardi, and complained to him vehemently that their rental properties in Narragansett were being taxed as if rental income, whether it was 30 days or less. So if they use an Airbnb or if they rented out their summer home for a week, they were outraged that Narragansett had the audacity to tax them. So he listened to his constituents in Cranston and went so far as to submit a bill to the state legislature, Bill 2813, to rescind that tax. The last I have read, that bill is in committee. Whether it will ever go forward or not, your guess is as good as mine. When it comes to income, if you are a federal taxpayer and you have a rental property, you must declare that rental income. Narragansett has a unique opportunity to take the $43 million on rental income in these properties, these 2,700 properties that are rented and tax it. So when you're looking at your total tax picture, there's one other aspect you need to look at. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak at open forum? Stanley.
Stan Wachowski, Narragansett. I was reading a paper. I was reading a paper on the Narrow River kayaks issue, and I kind of remember that taxpayers were supporting I guess the Middle Bridge issue is in a hole. In other words, taxpayers had to kick money in. They weren't making enough money. I forget whether it was 100,000. I forget what the numbers were, but
There were a lot of different views on that kayak situation.
yeah, and I think that so in other words, the taxpayers had to be supporting the Middle Bridge, running of the Middle Bridge, because it wasn't making enough money, from what I understand. In other words, the rental of the kayaks and the rental of all the houses did not provide enough money to support. I thought that.
Again, there were a lot of different
Yeah.
opinions on it,
Yeah,
Stanley.
well, the
Filled the
issue,
chamber, I know that.
yeah, the issue I was worried about was that the judge would allow a situation where you don't have to go to the highest bidder. And I think that's a bad policy for us to try and wiggle our way out of a good idea of going to the highest bidder, unless, of course, the highest bidder is totally irresponsible. In this case, I think the highest bidder did have another kayak issue close by, proving that he wasn't irresponsible. So I have an issue with, again, the legal people, the judge. Here he makes a ruling, oh, okay, it's okay. In this particular instance, for this concession stand, whatever the reasons are, he finds a reason that we don't have to use the highest bidder. And I'm afraid that will continue on with other issues as well. So I'd like to bring your attention that we stop that. We will use the highest bidder for the taxpayers' benefit. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Stanley. Carol.
To that end, if Patty can update us on that end of that litigation, that would be helpful.
So actually, I asked the solicitor, furnished us all with the decision, so we have to order that, and we'll be getting that. And probably, what would be the time frame, Patty? Couple of weeks? Couple of weeks.
Could you just summarize, though, Patty, for us, the litigation, what happened, the closure of it?
Sure. So we went to court the last week, and Judge Gallo threw out the Wickford Center kayaks lawsuit, saying that there was that the contract wasn't properly awarded to Narrow River Kayak. So the suit was thrown out in its entirety. Judge made some very specific rulings, which were very favorable to the town, based upon the meeting that was conducted. I think it was on October 16th of 2013. Some of the findings, and it doesn't necessarily have to go to the highest bidder. It's what's in the best interest for the town, and with the deliberation of the town council members on that evening. And the judge found that there was no wrongdoing, and then threw out the suit in its entirety. Once a final order is entered dismissing the case, Wickford Center will have 20 days to appeal that, so we're still in that window, and I'm not sure if final order is entered yet. We'll have 20 days. We'll know after that 20 days if there's an appeal.
So just to that, I just have one question about it, because I wasn't able to attend, but did the judge go so far to say because the kayak is a concessionaire that it doesn't fall under the same bidding requirements? Because that was one of the things I think we got all jammed up with the last time about, do we bid it out, do we not? And because it was considered a concessionaire, that it was an in-house particular job. Is that your understanding?
That was earlier
Yeah.
in the
Correct.
proceedings.
There was actually, that became a key component of what, whether it was supposed to go out to bid in the first place. That became an issue. And then because it was a concessionaire contract, it's a different set of rules that apply versus a bidding contract when there's a highest bidder. Concessionaires are much different types of contracts, so it's not necessarily somebody who comes in on a concessionaire contract and doesn't offer the biggest dollar figure. It's a little bit different with a concessionaire contract.
Thank you. Sorry, Carol, we just wanted to make sure everybody knew about the update. Thank you, Patty.
Well, first, I'd like to thank the police chief for his timely and informative letter that he sent out to the people who are property managers and people who rent their property. That was an excellent letter, and we're thankful that he took that initiative. My other point is to support Mr. Dentler on his comments, and I found it interesting that I don't know if he was a senator or Representative Lombardi from Cranston, but the fact that he was outraged and the fact that he didn't know about the short-term rental indicates that he's not a well-informed representative of his constituents, because the governor pushed that whole issue. Governor Raimondo pushed that issue. And where was he? So be it. Represent your constituents in a better way if you want to object to that. The other point I want to make is that bed and breakfasts for years have been paying that same tax. And bed and breakfasts in our town have spoken to me over the years numerous times. How is it we have to pay this high tax and we're audited quarterly, and we live on the premises, but the summertime rentals didn't have to pay a tax. So Governor Raimondo's initiative was to go after the short-time rental in the summer and tax them. And that's my only comment about that situation, but thank you for your time.
Thank you, Carol. Anybody else wishing to speak? Karen? So here they are. This is the last motion on the agenda. These are the 4 applicants.
I'd like to say that I totally agree with Mr. Dentler. The URI students were back today, and 3 houses down, there is an investment property that was covered with cars all over the grass. And I can hardly wait to see if that becomes a new fraternity on Wanda Street. I wondered if there was any way of checking how many residents there were going to be in that house. Like, do they just sign up for 4? An unlimited number can be in that house. It's a 3-bedroom house. Or is there any way of checking, like with URI, to find out how many residents are listed for particular residents? Is there any way of checking with the post office to see how many people they have accepting mail there? I'm good and sick and tired of what's been going on and people using our community for investment rather than being concerned about the quality of life in the community and such things as the library and the senior center. Of course, landlords that own a lot of land don't want to pay an extra penny for community services when they're making all this money. And I find this highly upsetting. I'd also like to comment on the selection of a new town solicitor. Mr. Mannix, when you ran on transparency, and I didn't see much transparency in that whole process when our full-time lawyer was replaced with a part-time lawyer. And I'd like to know what backroom deals were going on that this was the case. If you're going to have a full-time lawyer, I didn't hear any talk about changing the job description. We used to have a lawyer that was set up here full-time during the day. I don't see that to be the case, and I'm concerned that this is the direction the town is going in.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak? Seeing no hands, we're going to move on the agenda. Looking at the consent agenda, are there any items that any of the council members would like to pull at this time? Oh, sorry, I totally skipped it before we go to the consent. A motion to schedule a public hearing on the application for a transfer of alcohol beverage license from the Wheelhouse LLC, LDBA, Wheelhouse Plat, IG Lot 21-4S to WT Galilee Corp., DBA, The Fish House, 290-294 Great Island Road, Narragansett, Rhode Island,
Move to schedule for
October 2nd.
October 2nd.
Do we have a second?
Yep.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
October 2nd is the date. Moving on to the consent agenda. Seeing no interest, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Do I have a
Second.
second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, consent agenda passes. New business, number 14. Congratulations on the Calamari Fest. Number 14, a motion to adopt an ordinance and amendment of Chapter 70 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Narragansett entitled Taxation and Finance, Class 2 Tax Classification. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second for discussion?
I suppose. Second.
I just want the council has received it, but the public to know that we received 20 signatures about having a public hearing for the tax ordinance. And so anytime you receive 20 or more signatures, you are required to schedule a public hearing between the first and the second reading. So tonight, I'm not going to take any discussion other than schedule a public hearing as we're required to do so. And I'm looking at September 18th, if that's a good date to schedule for our next meeting.
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, motion passes, and we'll schedule a public hearing for September 18th on the taxation. Motion 15, a motion to adopt an ordinance relating to the comprehensive plan for the town of Narragansett. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Anybody from the public? Seeing no hands, all those in favor? Aye. 5-0, motion passes. Motion 16, a motion to authorize the town manager to sign the license agreement with RIDOT relative to the improvements and maintenance of the existing parking area adjacent to Sprague Bridge. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion. Jeff, I'm just going to ask you to come up because this is something we've been talking about and just so proud of the movement on this particular project by Sprague Bridge. So just before we vote on it, I want the public to know about it.
I thought you were going to explain it.
Well, I don't want to take all the credit. No.
Well,
You
as everyone knows, the areas immediately north and south of Sprague Bridge, where, you know, looking back 15, 20 years ago, it was a great spot to park and launch your kayak, your canoe, and it was pretty user-friendly and pretty much under control. But of recent years, it's been more and more of an overflow beach parking lot. I mean, we have
all the way up to...
all the way up
all the way
Boston
up.
Neck Road, all the way up to that first
On
driveway.
both sides.
On the east side as well. And if you look, Mike took some photographs in August of this year that were part of the package. And if you look at that, in my mind, one of the easiest ways to determine what that property was really being used for was to count the cars that actually had kayak racks on their roof. And if you look at the photograph of the south parking lot, I believe there were 2 cars that looked capable of carrying a kayak or canoe, of the probably 70 or 75 cars that were there. Going back a year or so, the staff, led by the town manager, met with DOT, talked about ways to better manage that site, in the interest of public safety as well, because if we ever had to respond to an emergency in that area, we'd never get equipment in there. So DOT expressed a willingness to work with us, and it took a year to evolve, whether it was going to be an outright acquisition or an adopt-a-spot, but what DOT came up with as a proposed solution was to issue a 5-year license to the town. The town would undertake certain improvements and better regulate the parking there, post it, the chief would enforce it, and then at the end of 5 years, we'll assess it again and see what the success is. I'm optimistic about it. I think there'll be some hurt feelings. There are people that are used to parking there every weekend and walking down to the beach, but I also think when you look at those photographs, that's not what we want the Sprague Bridge area to be.
Yeah, so, I mean, I had talked to Jim a year ago about that. One of the things I want to make sure is we've had so many visitors, and it has expanded so much that when we start that, we do need to communicate that in a way that those people understand that that is not going to be the way we do business moving forward, that we, might have no parking over there or might limit the people to get into the river because it's just expanded so much, and I just don't want people to come down next summer and think they just have a place to park and drop their kayak.
Yeah. There are 2 levels of approval at DOT. One, through the real estate office, was the development of the license that you see on before you tonight. The other is the actual technical nuts and bolts, how we propose to do it. The details of that were in the packet tonight as well. That's under review by DOT currently. So we'll be back to you once they approve that or once they modify that. So we'll be able to show you exactly what we plan to do for improvements and how we plan to control it administratively.
Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome.
Jim, did you want to say anything? I know that you worked on that as well.
Yes, Madam President. So I want to emphasize this improvement is not just for aesthetics, it's for public safety. Last year when I became town manager, I received many complaints about the south area near Sprague Bridge and the 2 areas, there's 3 areas, one where the overlook is and one across the street. And when I went there, it was definitely, there were about 80 vehicles in the south lot, and then in the northern lot on Boston Neck Road, there were over 120 that I counted. There were young children walking in between the vehicles. There were people pulling out, stopping traffic, jumping curbs. As Jeff stated, it really just turned into an overflow lot. It was not that pristine area where fly fishermen and people in kayaks were using it anymore. So what the proposal is to beautify all 3 areas. The south lot really, it's going to reduce the amount of vehicles that can go in there, but it's going to have decorative boulders, beams similar to the one Black Point up the road from here. Also, we'll put decorative boulders in the most northerly section of it, which is off Old Boston Neck Road right there. So DOT, this is a path to ownership for the south area. We're hopeful that if we improve this with their approval, when at some point we'll be able to go to them and have that south lot deeded right to the town. I think it'd be a very positive thing to do for the Narrow River.
Thank you, Jim.
I also just wanted to congratulate Jim, because I remember when I first came on council, one of the very first calls I received from Jim was his calling me in excitement, saying, guess what, DOT called, and I think that we might be able to make this happen. So I want to recognize him for spearheading it. I know in the past people had been talking about it, but we have a manager now who has had so many opportunities and positions in town government and state government that he has the ability to, I know a guy, phone calls to be able to really help Narragansett progress forward. And this is probably one of the biggest examples that we can see, because it's so evident for anybody who drives through town. So thank you, Jim. Fantastic job.
Thank you.
I do have one question. So if I'm reading this correctly, it's just 24 spaces. That's it, right?
Well, if you look at the south lot, to the south of Sprague Bridge, yes, that'll be at the most 24 spaces.
Right.
And then if you cross where the overlook is, there's no parking there anyway. And quite honestly, we didn't see many vehicles there as it is. But when you went north of that last long grass strip, hundreds of vehicles. So once again, that area will be limited to approximately 18 or 20 vehicles as well.
And then across the street where the sewage, that treatment, kind of that hub there, no parking, right? Because there's a lot of cars that park down that hill. In front
You're
of
talking
Chafee.
where the Chafee Preserve is? Yes, so, I mean, this is going to be part of a big comprehensive plan.
Okay.
We're going to be coming to you several times. We need to have some type of enforcement of, put some teeth into this for Boston Neck Road, so you don't have vehicles, hundreds of vehicles lined up and down the road. But also that area you're talking about is an area of concern as well.
Okay, great. Good job.
Thanks. Richard, come on up.
I had a question.
Okay. Richard, hold on.
Hang on, Richard. Liability. a lot of kids jump off that bridge. Now, since we're taking ownership, what kind of liabilities attached with this?
So
If
you,
any.
yeah, so you asked me that question last year, and that's a good question. No more liability than we have right now, because
Okay.
we maintain it right
Right.
now, and it's in the town of Narragansett. So even though it's state-owned property, I mean,
Yep.
there's liabilities, it's spread everywhere.
Okay.
Now, the state will still own it, we will still maintain it, and we're gonna make it safer. I think the area of liability that we really were culpable with is the parking, because there's
Right.
so many vehicles pulling in and out of those roads,
Okay.
and traffic and kids crossing. Now, the issue with the young people jumping off that bridge, that's an issue, and Chief Corrigan has addressed that, and we're
Yep.
gonna repost signs and enforce that as best we can.
Now, I know we're reducing parking over there. Should we take, well, that's stated, Chafee Preserve State, but is there any way we could like expand parking and provide more parking instead of limited parking?
At that location?
Well, either on the north side where the sewer pump station is, the westerly north side of the bridge,
Yeah, I
or
don't-
even on the east side of
So-
the north side.
Yeah, to be quite honest with you, we didn't need to look into expanding the parking. We're trying to
The
reduce it.
reason, and
Well, I
actually-
mean, people come here and they need a place to park. I mean,
But
I
the-
don't think it's gonna solve the problem if we limit parking.
Okay, but one of the reasons, and I did talk to Jim about this over a year ago, is that it is expanded to a point where it's become unsafe, and that we need to do something. He went out and talked to DOT, they offered to say that we could run it, manage it, whatever. There's a big plan that will come forward. I don't know how the council feels, but I'm hoping they're with me on keeping that down and not expanding it over there. You
Absolutely.
drive up that Boston Neck Road, the cars are all over the place. It's unsafe, kids,
Yeah.
just as you said. So tonight, the debate isn't.
All the more reason we should be providing more public parking.
Well, they have a plan, and just like
Right.
Scarborough, they have, near Black Point, they have a
I
very
mean, you can't
nice.
park anywhere. I got a ticket the other day for parking in my driveway. I
So,
mean, you can't
but the-
park anywhere in town.
Right, but let's just, the motion is for that particular area, so we're gonna have more to come on that, and you will, each piece that comes before us, you can certainly weigh in, but tonight, before us is really taking a look at
Very
how we
good.
can improve
I made my
that.
point. Very
Richard?
good.
Thank you, Patrick.
Yeah, at this point in life, if I were to sit down, I might not have been able to get up, so.
Yeah.
But
Like George
and what
Foreman.
is said here, I would classify as useful but negative. That area should be used positively, and part of the problem is we have not used that area positively. It is, I know there is a problem in crossing. One does not want to cross Boston Neck Road. However, both sides have things to do, things to see, and have tremendous walking possibilities. And we just haven't taken that positive step. If people were walking there, enjoying both sides of the road at different times, we would have a much better case, because there are things there that the town and volunteer groups should be doing to encourage activity, walking, seeing the area, seeing the history, getting a different look at Narrow River, taking a look at the old Sprague Bridge, part of it still up. These are all opportunities that would be nice to have in addition to negative sanctions.
Thank you.
But
Karen?
the problem is that they're walking to the beach, right? They're not walking on the preserve, they're not, that's the concern, and we're kind of overloaded, but I know other people want to talk.
Karen, if you want to come. Yeah, I mean, the area is definitely saturated, is probably a good word. That's right.
Hi, I want to address the really unsafe situation of kids or anybody jumping off that bridge. I think it's extremely unsafe. My daughter lives in Clemson, South Carolina, and a few years ago, there was a hazing incident at 5:30 in the morning where a student was killed, either pushed or jumping off a similar kind of a bridge. And it's very, very upsetting to have that happen. And I've seen kids jump off that bridge. It's very dangerous. Is there a way we could have heftier fines and it really posted? It's so dangerous that if somebody jumps in the wrong position or hits a rock or lands wrong, I think it's just very sad that that's been allowed. I mean, maybe it happened in the good old days, Patrick Murray, when you were growing up, but it's very unsafe. And I wondered about the use of that land for parking for people that use paddle boards. They've become increasingly popular, and I don't know if that's addressed at all. But it's like very heavy to carry a paddle board, and you can't really use them right down by the beach because they're too dangerous. But I know they've become increasingly popular, so I didn't know if that was going to be addressed. And although this was off specific geographic topic, I'm always very concerned about the end of Wanda Street, which turns into Narragansett Avenue, where there is parking on both sides. And I'm very concerned about that.
Thank you, Karen. Anybody else? Stanley?
Are we going to be looking at the cost to the taxpayer? What is all this situation going to cost us? Do you have any idea? The final cost, maybe?
I think it's about $10 million.
Yeah.
No, it's just, no, Stanley, so...
I want that, that's got the primary concern
Yeah,
is
so...
cost, it's not $5, right?
Yeah, I have an idea. So we've had some people approach us to donate material, the boulders. The town, DPW, is going to be doing almost exclusively all the work. We might have to hire someone to put the big timbers in. The cost will be minimal. I want to address your concern, Professor Vangermish, and Karen's all at once. So this is definitely a positive improvement for the town. There's no question. We want people to go there. We want people to have a good time. We want people with paddle boards and kayaks and fly fishermen. But it's turned into way more than that. An area that I didn't discuss was the environmental impact on the town by the way it currently is. If you go to that south lot and you walk down the bridge, down the water to go fly fishing, there's a path that's eroded there where the water just runs off now. There's so many people going down that path. If you go in the woods, which isn't even our property, just east of that, it's absolutely disgusting because you have so many people, hundreds of people with no facilities going in the woods to use the facilities. So this will definitely be a positive improvement for the town and for the river. But there's give and take. Yeah, we're going to lose some parking spots, but we'll gain. It'll be a beautiful place. I don't have an exact number what it'll cost, but it'll be minimal.
Well, I like the idea.
I got an eye on it.
Have them put a plaque on a big rock and then pay, I mean, everybody can pay. Volunteer work,
Is that, are you offering a donation now, Stanley? Is that
Well,
what you're-
let's see what the costs are.
See?
How big is the rock and how much does it cost?
Mary's even clapping on that one.
I got a lot of support back there, I can tell.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stanley. Thank you, Jim. Anybody else wishing to speak at open forum? On the issue. Anybody? All right, moving on.
Susan, the State Properties Committee, have they, I may have missed it in the packet, are they going to, after we sign it, then they will sign it?
So they approved this. We went back and forth for months and months. We put in for this back in October. So they did approve it. Now we're at the stage with, like Jeff stated, we need to go to them with a proposal, what our proposal is in depth with
And then
plans.
they see it.
And then it goes to them one more time for approval, then it comes back here. So this will be going before you again.
So conceptually, they've agreed, is what you're basically saying?
They have agreed.
They haven't signed the
They have
easement,
agreed to the 5-year
to
lease
the
at no
license,
cost to
right.
the town. And then, but they still want to see the plans to make sure we're not putting like a high-rise over there or something like that, so.
Got it, thanks.
Anybody else wishing to speak on motion 17 on the improvements of Sprague Bridge? Anybody? Anybody else from the council? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
5-0, motion passes. Motion 18, a motion to approve.
17.
Oh, sorry, thank you, guys. 17, a motion to approve contract amendments 5 and 6 with the RT Group, Inc. for supplemental services during construction and post-construction engineering assistance for the Scarborough wastewater treatment facility flooding proofing project in the amount of $50,264.15. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any discussion from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, motion passes. 18, a motion to approve the residential lease for the caretaker residence at 95E Middlebridge Road. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. This is a 5-year term lease for Matt Eddy, who is the caretaker. The contract has been looked at by the solicitor. And the council have any questions for the solicitor? No. Anybody from the public? Hearing all.
I just want to add one comment. Shayla Donahue, who's the coach for the UI rowing team, she could not be here tonight, but she asked that I read a statement on her behalf about Matt Eddy. I wish there were more people like Matt Eddy. He is so helpful to me and my crew. The grounds always look great. He helps me put the docks in at least 3 times a year. He helps if the pipes are leaking in the cottage. He's a jack of all trades. His expertise and tractor are always valuable. He's always going out of his way to help me and my team. Matt always does this with a huge smile on his face. He's a great guy and does a fantastic job at Middlebridge. I don't know what we'd do without him. And serving on the land trust, as does Matt, we echo that. So thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt, from the entire council. We thank you for your work. All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, motion passes. 19, a motion to approve the purchase and the installation service of 2 MDT tablets and 2 new police vehicles from Island Tech Services, LLC, in the amount of $11,966. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Any discussion from the public? All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, motion passes. Motion 20, a motion to approve the purchase of 28 Armor Express Level 2 Razor Body Armor packages from AAA Police Supply in the amount of $25,060 using the State of Massachusetts contract. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? Any discussion from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
5-0, motion passes. 21, a motion to approve the purchase of 3 new Ford Utility PIAWD police cruisers from MHQ Municipal Vehicles in the amount of $88,684.50. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
A
Second.
Discussion?
We budgeted for these during the budget season,
Yes,
so it's in keeping with the budget.
it's in keeping with the budget. Anybody from the public? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 5-0, motion passes. Motion 22, a motion to approve the purchase of 1 new 2018 Ford F-550 with attached utility body and a Dura-A lift model DTAX-39 insulated lift from CGM Colonial Municipal Group in the amount of $108,633. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Any discussion? Stanley?
We have a vehicle here for $108,000. A lift. Were other options looked at, like, can we partner up with South Kingston or North Kingston? Do they have a similar type of vehicle that's probably sitting around in the yard for a few months of the year or something that we could talk to them about and maybe program some of our maintenance or whatever we do with this thing? Can we rent it? Is there a rental situation so that we don't have this thing sitting in the backyard for 2 or 3 or 4 months while we're not using it? Are these other alternatives being looked at?
So I'll defer to the manager on that.
So I have a separate file for you, Stanley, just for answer all your questions.
Thank you
So
very
actually, when I looked at this, that obviously put up a red flag, $108,000 for vehicles. You know, that always, you look at those a little more closely. This is an aerial bucket truck. We currently do not have one. It's, the one we had was, I believe it was quite old. I don't have my glasses on. It was a 96. It was placed out of service 2 years ago because when the bucket was lowered, one of the buckles broke and the bucket almost fell. So, you can imagine when you're being lifted 20, 30, 40 feet in the air, you need good equipment. And I will never compromise equipment, safety equipment, whether it's fire, police, or DPW. So they need this truck. We have street lights that need to be changed. We have flags that need to be hoisted. Yeah, $108,000 is a lot of money. You make one mistake, one guy gets hurt because they're using junk equipment, and just tack on about 6 zeros after that number. That's what the town will be liable for. So Stanley, I watch this stuff very carefully.
I just
This
thought we
is-
could go
so
to
to answer,
South Kingston,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So just to answer your question about that. So South Kingston has their own vehicles. Now you have liability issues, insurance issues. They use their trucks all the time. They're double the size of Narragansett. Plus, when you start sharing vehicles, maybe they won't maintain them as good as we do. This is a good investment. Hopefully this truck lasts another 20 years, and then you'll be standing in that same spot when we buy another one 20 years from now. But I fully support this truck right here. We don't have one. Currently, they use the fire department's truck,
I used to run the wires with that, I guess.
and that one's pretty old, too.
Yeah. I didn't know if we could rent it, when you need, when you rent
You know,
it, it just-
rental's always an option. DOT rents a lot of vehicles. You end up paying a lot more for renting. If we use this thing 20, 30, 40 times a year, by the time you end up renting it for 3, 4, 5 years, you've already passed what you paid for it.
At least we consider it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All those in favor of the motion? Aye.
Aye.
5-0, motion passes. Motion 21, I need to make an amendment. There's a motion to appoint 3 individuals. I'd like to amend that to 4 individuals. So can
Second.
somebody has to make the motion.
Oh, I'd like.
So moved.
So you'll make it and you'll amend it?
Second, yep.
Okay, so we're amending it to 4 individuals for the PACT committee. All those in favor of amending the motion?
Aye.
5-0, motion passes. Okay, a motion to appoint 4 individuals to the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Ad Hoc Committee. And Patrick, there are 4 names.
Okay, we got 4 names here. We got David E. Figgins, Randy D. Fixman, Karen Shepchalowitz, and David W. Smith, who would like to be on this committee.
So you have those names up. Do we have a second?
Second.
So, discussion. Stanley, are you for the discussion of the candidates that want to be on the PACT Ad Hoc Committee?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, the term ad hoc committee, I think we really need to include experts, expert opinions, expert background, some expertise, some college education, something that qualifies these people to be able to discern where bicycles or pedestrians ought to be. That's a very serious issue, and I'm not so sure.
Well, they
I'm
have
not
a-
telling me, these people, they had a formal education on bicycle and pedestrian issues in some town or
Well,
some
yeah,
phase.
Randy Fixman
Madam
has-
President, I think, doesn't Mr. Fixman,
Yeah,
doesn't
Randy
he?
Fixman has a, can you just read a
Fixman
little
does?
bit of
So
his
yeah,
resume?
one of
He's-
them does, so we have
I
one.
would consider, well,
Oh, sorry.
it's an ad hoc group of 5. They all come with some kinds of, different experiences, but he's pretty experienced, so listen to this.
Okay, Mr. Fixman.
Fixman
The question is, what expertise can I provide? I am a practicing transportation planner with particular interest in public transportation, bicycles, and pedestrian
sound- that's-
planning.
that's-
In addition, I'm very familiar with the town's multi-model networks, as I have walked, biked, and ran across the town for for over
That's
2
okay.
decades.
That's okay,
Yeah.
Pat, I'll go along with that.
All right.
It sounds like he's good, but I would like to have a majority. In other words, that poor
Right.
guy, he's gonna have a hard time convincing the others who are probably more mouthy
So Stanley,
to
just
go
to-
along with his
to-
opinion.
Well, I don't know.
I want an expert opinion to
To
have a little more
reassure
weight.
you, the
Listen,
people
I'd
that-
like to stick up for Karen back here,
Yeah.
all right? I was out there driving my vehicle around, and she told me to get out of the
Okay,
way.
listen,
so
listen.
I know, well, that's it, you put her on a board
All
and it's
She
there.
has my support.
applicants come with qualifications. David Smith is very familiar with bike paths, and Karen, so I'm pleased with those applicants, and I hope that the council
And
will
I-
support them. And
just-
so thank you, Stanley.
Yeah,
And
I
I
just
did,
read, the more experts we have, the better off we are.
Thank
There's now
you.
less fighting.
We got
And
him.
the fighting happens when there's some uninformed, uneducated people just have an opinion.
Thank you, Stanley.
They want it to go their way, and they want to
Okay.
listen to they don't want to listen to the expert.
Okay.
I want to do it my way. I don't care what the expert says.
I got it.
I understand
We
how
got
that
it.
goes. Thank you very much.
thank you.
Thank you.
And before we just vote on this, I do want to give a special thanks to Karen Shevchelowitz. It was actually her great idea. They were doing it in South Kingston, and she brought it to my attention. I talked to the council over in South Kingston, and I think with the bike path being underway, and with the pedestrians in the town, I think it's a great idea, so I'm thrilled. So I want to thank Karen personally, and I hope that we have a first and a second, and all those in favor.
I just want to say one quick thing.
Oh,
Just one more thing.
okay.
Boston Neck Road, to me, is a disaster. I mean, just people biking and walking. We need to do something over there, either reactivate the old Seaview Railroad and use that as a bike path or pedestrian traffic, but we got to get those people, either widen that road or have a special lane or something, because that's getting dangerous. More and more people are there, and they're just, it's a dangerous situation.
Thank you, Patrick. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0, motion passes. Congratulations to David and Karen who are out there, so congratulations.
Very
And
good.
Randy, I don't see Randy or David Figgins, but, oh, congratulations, thank you. Okay, we have motion to retire to executive session, the town council at the end of September 5th, 2017 town council meeting in accordance with Rhode Island General Laws 4246-4 and 4246-5 to discuss personnel issues in the finance department as accordance with Rhode Island General Laws 4246-5-1 to discuss the acquisition of lease of real property for the public purpose, which is a library update in accordance with 4246-5, and appoint J. Patrick O'Neill as clerk pro tem. I'd like a roll call vote.
Mike Moretti, aye.
Patrick Murray, aye.
Matt Mannix, no.
And Jill Lawler, aye.
Susan Bonanno, aye. So it was a 4-1. Thank you. We're adjourning. Good night. Go home safely. See you again.